Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Sunbury Motors, North 4th Street in Sunbury, and Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Great to have you with us on the show today. Brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Well, tomorrow's the trade deadline. See how she all plays out tomorrow. The Phillies picked up Vargas from the Mets. Okay. And you've got JT Realmuto as your catcher already at the big club, and a couple of other really good prospects down below, including a kid like Logan O'Hoppe up at Williamsport. You can deal another catcher, and they did that. So the Phillies dealt a position of strength to get Vargas. So that was, I thought, an important distinction in what they did with their deal for Vargas. They dealt a position of strength. They dealt a good prospect. All right, so let's start with that. They dealt a good prospect, but they also dealt a prospect in an area where they have a lot of prospects. I've liked the Phillies catching prospects over the years. I really have. And I've seen this kid play. That's fine. So again, and they get a starter. I think he'll help them. And we'll go from there. Now, what else are they going to do? The Phillies did have a scout here at the game on Sunday night. There were several other scouts here on Sunday night. And it's going to be interesting to see who makes deals, because there is an advantage that we have in that I can identify who's thinking about making deals just based on who's at the park. And I've had some good conversations with some people. And among those conversations have been, very simply, from all of the scouts, quote, I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know. In other words, the scouts are sitting there and they don't know if their own organizations are buyers or sellers. That's the part they don't know. Now, they're looking at players because they're being asked to look at players and evaluate players, especially positionally. And if you're a buyer, those prospects may be involved in the deal. And if you're a seller, those prospects may be involved in the deal. So either way, they're going to be fine as to what they do. But it was interesting talking to them that they have no read from their front offices as to what they're going to do. None. So that's what makes this a completely different ball game, because there will be no waivers this year. This will not be a deal where, okay, X cleared waivers, suddenly on August 20th you make a deal, and that's it. That's not going to happen. What is going to happen is that tomorrow you make a deal, and that's your roster. That's your organization. You're not going to be able to change up. The Phillies have to be, I was talking to P.J. Mullen today. P.J. Mullen is a huge Phillies fan. He says, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing. I said, look. I said, they have to buy. They have to. You cannot go out and get Realmuto, Segura, Bryce Harper, By the way, Harper, did you notice Harper is actually second in the National League in batting average of runners in scoring position? Just thought I'd mention that. But you don't go out and invest in guys like that and go, you know what, I think we'll sell now. You can't do that. Now let's get to the Pirates. Pirates would be one that people would probably like to poach a couple players here and there. Vasquez, of course, is the big one. Vasquez is the big one. No getting around it. The Dodgers have made it pretty plain to the Pirates that they do not want to give up their number one shortstop prospect in the deal. So the Dodgers now have to make a decision. And the decision is as follows. Do we have enough to get through the regular season? And are there two starters that we think can bridge gaps for us in the postseason? The Red Sox bullpen last year in winning it, and a team that won 119 games, won 11-3 in the playoffs. But their bullpen was good, not great. It helped that Joe Kelly came down the stretch and pitched well. Matt Barnes down the stretch pitched well. Ryan Brazier. But you notice, and of course Kimbrel was up and down closing. But how did the Red Sox handle the bullpen? Suddenly, Rick Porcello's pitching an inning. Suddenly, Nathan Eovaldi is coming out of the bullpen. Suddenly, David Price is out of the bullpen. Oh, and who closed the World Series with 3 straight strikeouts? Chris Sale. So once you get to the postseason, it's all hands on deck. And can the Dodgers identify a couple of guys that can fill some of those roles who are currently starters? And maybe you don't have to make the Vasquez deal. The other Pirate individual that I think has some value, but he'd have to pass a physical, is Corey Dickerson. Dickerson would have to pass a physical because he's had a couple of injuries this year. I think whomever acquires him has to be 100% sure he's healthy. I mean, the guy can hit. Not only that, not only can the guy hit, the guy showed last year that he can be a reliable outfielder. So that's where we are in the trades right now. Now we're going to play the waiting game. And tomorrow could be very active, very busy, and well covered for you here. Anything that comes up, we'll pass it along to you right away. Penn State football camp gets underway at the end of the week. Media Day's coming up. We're going to hear from Ryan Snyder today on the recruiting part of it. I think that'll be fun. We'll talk with him. Neil Coulong today on the Steelers. It's a stoic, staid Steelers camp. Have you noticed that, Sean?
Nice and quiet so far. It's the way we like it. It's been a while.
Yeah, what if the big mouths still perform really well? What if Bell and Brown have awesome seasons? Would you take more of their outgoing personalities? Or would you rather be 8-8 stoic and staid?
It's funny you bring up 8-8 because that's pretty much what I think they're going to do this year is 8-8. I mean, this is the one time where Suit's thinking 10-6, and I'm thinking, where are you pulling 10 wins from? I'm just thinking I'm just being way, way ultra conservative and not all that optimistic.
That's our new numbers guy.
I guess. Now looking at, he has a glass half full frame of mind instead of half empty. But Roethlisberger has had some great seasons. It's been a while since he has been hurt and missed a game or two. So I just kind of think in the back of my mind if something along those lines would be overdue for BR7. I hope doesn't happen. But they've already had a couple of nicks and injuries in training camp. I believe Sean Davis had something really, really minor. It's not going to keep him out long. And I believe one of the wideouts, Dante Moncrief, I think he had some kind of maybe a finger injury or something.
Now, on the positive side, Artie Burns is completely healthy.
That's just great. Finished the show yesterday with Artie. We begin the show with Artie. I'm sensing a theme here. All right, I'll leave that on the buffet. Thanks.
I'm not anti-Artie. Okay?
I know. Hey, we both watched the draft that night, and we both kind of say, okay, yeah, he's got some quicks, but you brought it up years ago. Yeah, can he become a football player? That was the key.
Answer, and so far he hasn't done it. You can't just. I felt Bud Dupree was a combine guy too, and you just can't. You've got to be able to see some combination of football instinct to go with athleticism. There's no getting around it. Artie Burns is a great athlete. He's a great athlete. But he's not a great football player. You've got to be able to combine the athleticism with the instinct. Let's go back 50 years. Bob Hayes. Bob Hayes, the Olympics will be in Tokyo next year. In fact, a year from now, the Olympics will be taking place in Tokyo. Last time they were in Tokyo was 1964. Bob Hayes won the gold medal in the 100 meters. And in fact, in the 100-yard dash, Bob Hayes was a 9-1 guy. He then transitions to the Cowboys, and guess what? Bob Hayes knew how to play football. Like Ronaldo Nehemiah was a great hurdler, the 110 gold medalist in the high hurdles. He went to the 49ers, and it just didn't translate for him. Yeah, he could run fast, and he could jump, but he didn't have that football feel. Jerry Rice could not outrun Ronaldo Nehemiah. Could not outrun him. But Jerry Rice is a football player. And by the way, did you ever see Jerry Rice get caught from behind? Ever? I mean, can you remember, Sean, Jerry Rice ever getting caught from behind? I can't.
Neither can I. No.
And his 40 time, was he a 4.6, 4.7 guy? Something like that. But he knew angles, he knew how to run routes, he was a long strider. And guess what? In pads, I'll bet Jerry Rice did not slow down that much when he was wearing pads. But it's the football instinct part. See, that's what's holding Artie Burns back. As an athlete, he is exemplary. Fast, long arms. He's got a lot of the measurables you really like. The problem is the ability to play the game. How do I use leverage? How do I use it properly? How do I use leverage and stay away from penalty? That's all part of the instinct part of it.
I think there was this folklore story about Jerry Rice back in 1985 when he was actually drafted by the USFL. There were people saying he ran a 4.45 40.
Yeah, that was the USFL.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's not what he ran.
Maybe more like a 4.7.
4.6, 4.7.
Yeah.
4.65. It's the USFL. I mean, it's not the XFL with, quote, he hate me. I saw that the first night. I thought this league is not making it. But that's what, I think the Eagles have done a brilliant job of identifying good athletes, but really good football players. Really good football players. Well, You go out and you get an Alshon Jeffrey. Jeffrey will get to the high point of the ball, but he's also a really good football player. Miles Sanders is a really good football player. Yeah. Wentz is a good football player. Okay, guys that are, and Wentz is a good athlete, and Miles is a good athlete. Jeffrey's a good athlete, but they know how to play the game. Nelson Aguilar has shown us he knows how to play the game. Look at the defenders the Eagles have. They're not just plugging in athletes into spots. They're plugging in guys who are good athletes, but are also guys that know how to actually play the game. And it's not just, oh, I know the playbook and so forth. There's an instinct to it, and there also is an anticipation to it because you know what you see, you believe it. You know how to use leverage. That's a really important part. Do you know how to use leverage? Use it to your advantage. And it's not just I'm getting underneath your pads in the trenches. It's a corner can have leverage, and they can take a wide receiver completely off their game by using leverage. Can you bait a quarterback into a bad play? These are all things I think are important that aren't talked about enough. All right, we will take a break. Today's show brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. ESPN has a story on ESPN.com about quarterback Kelly Bryant and how I went from Clemson to Missouri. Okay, let me capsulize it for you. He's at Clemson. Trevor Lawrence shows up. Bryant looks at him and goes, oh, my God. Right? Then they announce Trevor Lawrence is the starting quarterback. Kelly Bryant says, I think I better leave. Does, and goes to Missouri. Okay, there's your story. That's how he ended up there. Okay?
Yep, that's how it happened.
Heinz Field. Heinz Ketchup is evidently not going to renew their contract with the Steelers. How about that?
Yeah, they were paying the Steelers $2.85 million a year for 20 years. So, yeah, by 2021, be looking for a new sponsor.
I mean, Heinz Field, out.
Gone.
And it's their decision. They're looking at the Steelers saying, hey, gone. I wonder if that means that Bill won't have to say the Heinz Red Zone.
The old ketchup bottle. Chris Berman would call it the old ketchup bottle on the primetime highlights.
I know.
Yeah. That's what they have on the two sides of the jumbo board in Heinz Field. They have these big Heinz ketchup bottles.
I know.
Yeah, and then they tilt down, and then the whole scoreboard turns red at the start of the kickoff, at the start of the game, and at the start of the second half. Yeah.
Now, here's the deal. Right, the Steelers, Kraft Heinz, paid $57 million for 20 years. And let's face it, that is well below the market value. So you know darn well that, the Heinz 57, that's why the $57 million comes from. But when the new deal comes up, it's not going to be 20 years for $57 million. Welcome to Permanente Brothers Field. When it comes to car buying, there's the other guy's way, and then there's the SMC way. The other guys force you into a vehicle you really don't want. The Sunbury Motors way lets you take the time you need to browse, ask questions, and take the test drive and think on it. For over 100 years, the Mertz family and all their employees have made your experience the most pleasant one you'll ever have. The other guys won't offer you the best price for your trade, no matter how much they say they will. The SMC way is their promise to provide you with the most money the market shows your vehicle is worth. The SMC way is to offer you all applicable factory rebates on new vehicles and generous discounts. Looking for a pre-owned vehicle? The SMC way checks each vehicle in a 200-mile radius to determine the lowest price, then beat it. It's the lowest price promise, just part of the SMC way. The choice is up to you. The other guy's way or the SMC way. The SMC way wins every time. Sunbury Motors Company in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury, and at sunburymotors.com. Selling more cars and satisfying more customers for over 100 years.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is The Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. In a few moments, Neil Coulon. Next hour is the All Snyder Hour. Mark Snyder, Major League Baseball writer, CBSSports.com, will join us. We'll talk about the trade deadline. And then Ryan Snyder from Blue White Illustrated and Rivals will join us to talk about Lash Bash and Penn State football recruiting. So the All Snyder Power Hour coming up. Now let's get to the Steelers. He demanded a stoic, stayed Steelers camp. And because Neil Coulon said it should be, the Steelers acquiesced. Neil, welcome.
Yeah, I can't take full responsibility for it, but they've definitely filed suit about as light a training camp news-wise I think we've seen out of this team in 4 or 5 seasons. And I'm not sure if that's good or bad. I just know that it's quiet.
Will there be any position battles, or are most set where people think they will be?
I think position battles, I think, are interesting because there's tape that they're putting down now to determine certain positions, and those positions, I think, are going to affect their futures. You look at a guy like Ola right now. For me, I think the outside linebacker position is something the Steelers, one, have invested a lot in terms of extensions, high draft picks, retention contracts to keep guys around. But in the end, Ola might be the guy that's starting for him next season in replacement of Bud Dupree. So they're going to pay a premium for Dupree right now in really an artificial market. They only could pay him one thing for this season unless they wanted to give him an extension. So they're paying him $9 million essentially to keep a seat warm for an undrafted player to start next year. If that doesn't define how weird the NFL can be, I don't know what does. But he's somebody to look at now because the reps that he gets are critical for the future of this defense. Maybe not this season, but down the line, that's going to matter. I don't want to say that this year is nothing that the Steelers are going to try for. They're not going to put a whole lot of effort into. Obviously they are. But long term, they're saving a lot of money if they can get a comparative starter out of a player like Ola in comparison to Bud Dupree. Now, they're going to have to pay now for Dupree for the idea of not having to pay all that much next year. That's a trade-off I think the Steelers win in the end, plus the comp pick that Dupree will get back. The point being, a lot of what they're going to look at for Ola right now is going to be for his future development. You can say the same thing about Deontay Johnson, the reps that he's going to get, what position exactly they're going to find for him on the field. As a third-round pick this year, typically the non-Juju receivers that have come through the Steelers organization, the rookies, are contributing a little bit, but not a whole lot. So whatever work he's doing now is really going to be to advance his cause for what could be an interesting battle next year between him and James Washington, barring that both of them are still on the team, and they are as productive as I think they'll be this coming season. The reps that he's going to get now as a rookie are going to help him prepare for that battle next year. So as far as the team this year, I think most of it is set, but there are a lot of very interesting future battles that are going to be set up right now, and how well they do are going to be a big part of that for next year.
Back to Dupree for a moment. Now we have a full body of work to look at him. What's been missing from him?
In my opinion, you're going to get a lot of them from a lot of different people. I think, one, on the positive side, I think he did well enough to have finished plays a little bit better than he did last year. And a lot of times, pressure is the most important thing. It's not so much about getting the sacks. He got in the backfield. I think he made plays at times, but he had the potential to make more plays if he shaves down just a degree or two on his angle, a millisecond or two on his burst off the line. I think he's close, and I think the Steelers are really banking on him, being able to make those very slight adjustments to this point to be a very productive per down player, which right now I don't think that he is. At the same time, though, those adjustments and the ability to take the amount of time off of his approach to getting the quarterback, that's what defines an average player versus player. So is he able to do that? I don't know. I think we're going to see a better Bud Dupree this season, but I've said that before. I don't think he's improved enough to really think that he's on the verge of breaking out into something bigger. I think he'll be a reasonable player. I think he's a run and hit athlete by and large. I think the next position he plays in the NFL is probably going to be an outside linebacker in a defense that utilizes him more on the weak side to pursue ball carriers, to take on backside guards. I don't think he's going to be as much a pass rusher at the next team he plays for, which I don't think will be Pittsburgh. But I think he'll have a reasonable year. I think he'll be a decent player. I'd probably put the over-under for sacks for him for the year about 6.5. 7 or 8, I think, is on the high side. I'd probably put him about 6.5 on the year. He can help a defense that knows how to sack the quarterback, to put it lightly. That's a big part of the reason why they brought him back. He's familiar with what they're doing, and the team has had success while he's in there. So I'm not sure how much of it they really wanted to change up for this season, but long-term, I don't think he's going to be in their plans.
Neil, James Conner is obviously the number one running back. If healthy, if Conner stays healthy, does Benny Snell have any role?
I'll say this. It's difficult to answer that because I'm not sure the Steelers have had a situation in which their starting running back hasn't gotten hurt in long enough. I'm not sure what they're going to do, especially in a running backs room where all of them were drafted. Usually Snell's role is filled by a veteran journeyman type of guy who has some experience. They're creating kind of an interesting paradigm within that room now. Connor's not overly experienced either. I think we saw good things from him, but I think his best days are going to be ahead of him. If he's going to be a consistently outstanding NFL player, he's going to have to improve in some ways. I'm not sure what any of their roles are going to be, and I'm not sure that we can really put a whole lot of that in stone, mostly because I really don't think that the Steelers are going to want to put that much emphasis on one running back anymore. I think that's the reason why they've invested a fifth-round pick in consecutive years and invested a third-round pick into Conner. I think they knew the possibility of Bell not coming back was real. So they wanted to get a consistent group of guys that they had under team control for a good amount of time to give them the ability, to do what they needed to do with the position. I think Snell can be a goal line guy, he can be a short yardage guy, to take out high impact carries from Conner in an effort to lessen his overall workload, to hopefully, for once, have a fresh running back who was able to contribute 16 consecutive games ready to go for the playoffs, should they be able to get there. That's something I think is a priority for the Steelers this season because they've never had it, and it's been a detriment to them down the stretch of each of the last, 5 seasons now. They need to figure that out. And I think Snell is going to be there to maybe take a few carries here and there. I don't think he's going to be a consistent guy. He's not going to be somebody they're going to plan 5 to 6 touches a game for, but they're going to want him to be ready to carry the ball north and south the way that he showed in college that he could do, and hopefully take some of the contact off of Conner as the season goes on.
Neil, always a pleasure. Appreciate your time very much, and great job covering a Stoic State training camp.
Definitely. Thanks for having me.
Danville Ward 3 Field. What do you think?
Oh, you mean the new naming rights post Heinz Field?
Yeah.
Kind of lengthy. Doesn't flow all that much to me, but
Okay. Renew the suit field.
I'm just trying to think of other like dynasty businesses out there that would take the place.
Obviously, PNC already has the ballpark. That doesn't mean they can't have the football stadium, right?
PPG Paints Arena for the Pens.
Right. Here we go. Because I know, and this is legit. I know they're trying to get into the game, back into the game again. Iron City Field.
I love that. I could roll with that all day.
I know, and I know they're trying to get back into the game and trying to improve the reputation. They have new ownership of it. So I thought I'd throw that one in there.
Yeah, I noticed they did some rebranding, repackaging of the Icy Light line when I was out in Pittsburgh a week and a half ago.
Yeah, also retasting. Supposedly it
I did that.
better.
I did that as well. Yes, very good. Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's. I mean, those are in Philadelphia. Now, Lincoln Financial Field stayed the same the entire time, but the arena has not. I mean, I've always referred to it as what the Bank of the Month field. That's, you know. You remember? I mean, let's face it. San Francisco used to be AT&T Park, and no longer. I don't even know what the name of the park is today.
Well, 49ers?
No, that's Levi's Stadium. I'm talking about the Giants. I don't know.
Yeah,
With the Giants, who it is.
The Chargers' name's kind of funny. Rocket Field at Dignity Health Sports Park.
Well, you can get around that
this year for the Chargers.
Okay, you can get around that. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Carson, California.
Right.
There we go. We're done. Some of this stuff doesn't work. For example, I've done they call it the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl. Do you think I ever called it the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl?
I've never heard you say that.
No, well, no, because the fans recognize it as the Fiesta Bowl. They've got the rights are all over the field. They've got it at the 50-yard line. They've got it on the 35s. That's fine. That's great.
San Francisco Giant Stadium is Oracle Park.
Oracle Park. Okay. And then there's another one, like the Rose Bowl. Is the Rose Bowl presented by Vizio, Northwestern Mutual, something? And of course, I've never called it anything but the Rose Bowl. I mean, even the Tax Slayer Bowl, I kept referring to it as the Gator Bowl. And then finally, they went back to Gator in the name because they know they can't. They know they can't get into the college football playoff rotation unless they have the traditional name in the bowl. Did you know that? The reason that the Peach Bowl had transitioned from the Peach Bowl to the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl to then to the Chick-fil-A Bowl. Remember that? Now, have you noticed they're back to the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl? The reason is simple. The College Football Playoff, which is the College Football Playoff Incorporated, demands that you keep the name in there. And here's the reason why. For what we just talked about with Heinz Field. Sponsors do come and go on these games. Now, Chick-fil-A has stayed with Atlanta for a long time. But notice there's been, it used to be the FedEx Orange Bowl, now it's the Discover Orange Bowl. So you've got, now it's the Capital One Orange Bowl. So even the Orange Bowls had 3 of them. A phone company was the Cotton Bowl at one point. Then it's Goodyear. Sugar Bowl was Nokia. Allstate. Is it still Allstate?
I thought it was, yes.
Yeah. And of course, the Fiesta Bowl's changed many times. Tostitos, Sunkist. and now it's PlayStation. So because of what I just outlined for you, that's why they want the bowl games that are associated with them to keep their name in it as the recognition part of the bowl game. Oh, yeah, it's the Peach Bowl. It's in Atlanta. Oh, it's the Cotton Bowl. It's in Arlington. The Orange Bowl's in Miami Lakes. The Rose Bowl's in Pasadena. The Sugar Bowl's in New Orleans. That's why they wanted it kept that way. So it still gave you an identity. That's where, for example, I think, I'll give you one, golf tournaments. Golf tournaments have made, to me, a mistake over the years in not putting the location of the tournament as part of the tournament name. Right? The Travelers Championship. Okay, where's the Travelers? Now, I know it's in Hartford. I got that, but it's easy for me. I grew up there. But it used to be the Greater Hartford Open. Why isn't it the Travelers GHO? Let's see, the Greenbrier. Well, I guess the Greenbrier it's a resort. Now, the Houston Open's coming back next year, so it's the Shell Houston Open. But you got other tournaments where it's suddenly the Wells Fargo Championship. Well, where the heck is the Wells Fargo Championship? If you're hosting the tournament, don't you want people to know where it is? Isn't that part of hosting it? It's the same thing with bowls, right? The identity, especially of the traditional bowl games, at least let you know, yeah, the Gator Bowl, yeah, it's in Jacksonville. And you notice last year, Gator was put back in. And they know darn well that that if they want any shot at working their way into the rotation for the college football playoff when the next contract comes up in 6 years, well, they know darn well that's part of the pathway to doing it. So that's why they did it. Essentially, they've been told they have to do it. Now, they don't have to do it, but, which means that their shot at getting into the rotation is no shot. But obviously, Jacksonville would like to be a part of it, so they did it. But I think you want to have the location in your name somewhere. I think it's part of the promotional benefit of hosting something. I mean, the Cure Bowl, all right. Any idea where the Cure Bowl is? It's in Orlando. Oh, by the way, did you see Keith Lincoln passed away the other day? Max Falkenstein, who for 60 years was the voice of Kansas football and basketball, finally retired in 2006, I want to say. He was the voice of Kansas for 60 years. He passed away last night at the age of 95. Really one of the all-time greats. Keith Lincoln, running back, Chargers, gained 206 yards against the Patriots in the AFL Championship game in '63. Really a terrific running back. Passed away this week at the age of 80. Bob Meidinger, the late Bob Meidinger, who was such a good friend of me. And Bob was not only just a good friend, he was also my lawyer. Right? Played on that team in San Diego. So he had an AFL championship ring. And Bob was very proud of his AFL championship ring. So at Bob's funeral, I was one of those. They asked 7 different people to deliver eulogies, and I was one of the 7. And so I told the Keith Lincoln story. You'll love this. Lincoln, good family guy, okay? But he was from the Northwest, and the championship game took place like right after Christmas or something like that, right around there, as to when the championship game took place. And so his family goes home, or his wife goes home, whatever, because like suddenly out of nowhere they're playing in this championship game. So the night before the game, a few guys go out, and Lincoln is not a drinker. He's not a drinker. And I guess it was that right after New Year's they played the game. So he's not a drinker at all. So he has like 3 or 4 drinks, whatever, 5 drinks the night before the game. Well, it is a blazing hot day at Balboa Stadium in San Diego. And Lincoln takes the ball and goes, 70-something yards for a touchdown. And Bob says he gets to the goal line and leans into the goalpost and wham. And then he did it on the sideline. And then later in the game, he was still sick, and the guy still gained 202 yards.
You're listening to News Radio 1070 WKOK Sunbury. You can hear us anywhere in the world with the Sunbury Broadcasting Corporation app.